undecided, but is reportedly leaning toward Judge Brett Kavanaugh. A source familiar with the selection process told NBC News Judges Raymond Ketledge and Amy Coney Barrett. They're also in the top contenders. Let's bring in Jonathan Alter, columnist for the Daily Beast and an MSNBC political analyst, and Republican strategist Lauren Zelt, managing director of FP1 Strategies. With a good Saturday morning to you both. Lauren, each of these candidates, they have factors. Each one has at least one that could complicate their bids. Kavanaugh's got the ties to the Bush administration. Raymond Ketledge, he has the rulings in favor of immigrants, and then in Amy Coney Barrett's situation, she's got the potential to spark some fierce confirmation battle over her views on abortion. Which one do you think poses the biggest hurdle?
Well, I think when we're looking at this, we have to look at the senators that are going to be ultimately the deciding factor here, right? So we're looking at Susan Collins, we're looking at Lisa Murkowski, Joe Donnelly, Joe Manchin, and Heidi Heitkamp. Now, I know that Amy Coney Barrett, she could possibly cause, some issues given her, her strong Christian views. She's been very upfront about that. I would say, though, with her in particular, she did say during her confirmation hearings just last year for her current position that she has no interest in overturning Roe versus Wade. The New York Times reported on that. So I know that the response to her could be, pretty fierce. But she did say that, when she was in those confirmation hearings, and I think she would probably stand by it in any further confirmation hearings. I think with Mr. Kavanaugh, the issue that you pointed out is a good one, that he may be seen as too establishment for the Trump administration, and I think you could potentially see some Trump supporters saying that's not draining the swamp if we're just, bringing back people from the Bush administration. So, I think we'll see. None of us are in the president's head, so we don't know what's going to happen per se. But, I think the reality of the situation is, regardless of who the pick is, I think that this is a big, a big win for Republicans having, this Supreme Court nomination this year.
Yeah. And even broadening this out, Jonathan, I want to look at the Politico report, which looks at a number of court battles linked to the president that could potentially come before the Supreme Court. In terms of topics, they range from sexual misconduct allegations, also emoluments, claims that his charitable foundation has misused some funds. Is it a stretch, Jonathan, for Democrats to raise these as potential conflicts already, or does this become part of a bigger messaging strategy?
Well, I think they can and they will raise these issues, not necessarily as they relate to emoluments and that sort of thing, but how about the question you were just discussing a few minutes ago? Can a president be subpoenaed to testify? That's a legal question that will likely, very possibly, go to the U.S. Supreme Court. And at that point, should the Trump appointee be forced to recuse himself from that decision? And you will have a lot of Democratic senators who will be bringing this up, and I think getting some traction on this issue at the confirmation hearings, because you know that Trump is always looking out for number one, and you can bet that he probably discussed what their legal philosophy was with these possible nominees as it came to as it relates to whether a president can be compelled to testify, whether a president can be indicted. There are a whole series of questions that are now front and center, and they should push to have those nominees recuse themselves on these questions that relate to the Mueller investigation.
So there's a part of Brett Kavanaugh's background, Lauren, that's gaining some attention. The New York Times is putting it this way, that Brett Kavanaugh rather, once argued that President Bill Clinton could be impeached for lying to his staff and misleading the public, a broad definition of obstruction of justice that would be damaging if applied to President Trump in the Russia investigation. So what do you think the president makes of that when considering whom to choose?
I think that that's a knock against Mr. Kavanaugh for sure. Look, the Mueller investigation is ongoing. This is a serious matter that I think, everyone agrees that, needs to be taken seriously. And frankly, though, I do think we need to wrap it up. But, and just see what have they found? Has there been obstruction or not? But I do think that that's kind of a knock against Mr. Kavanaugh because of what you just said.
Okay. Hey, listen, guys, I'm going to have to cut this short. I'm sorry to you, Jonathan, but also a thank you to you both, Jonathan and Lauren. We do have this breaking news that's coming in from North Korea right now, as the North's official news agency says that